Well, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Disciple Makers podcast. We have a very well-known friend of Discipleship.org with us, Ralph Moore. And Ralph, I literally right here on my desk have one of your books, Let Go of the Ring, sitting right next to me here. And have read actually several of your books. You've been a friend of D.org for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And man, it is such an honor and a privilege to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm so proud of all that you guys are doing, and it's just a joy that I get to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, thank you, brother. And honestly, we were just talking right before we started the recording here about the movement that God allowed you to be a part of through the church that you led for a long time, and then how that multiplied into many more churches, which is honestly unheard of in North America, Ralph. I mean, we hear of it happening in China or India. Like I was telling you, I was a part of one in India for many, many years, or Africa. But the reality, something like that being birthed out of a church in North America is super unique. And thank you for just paving the way for us, brother, to see a church in the U.S. do something like that. Just for the sake of the listeners who don't know about the story, Ralph, would you mind just telling us briefly about the impact that you guys have seen globally just through multiplying disciples in churches?
So we started in 1971, which is a long time before you were born,
Yeah,
and there were
I was
12.
I was born in '85, Ralph. For the
In
just so,
1983, I left the first church and moved to Hawaii and started again.
okay.
We started out I mean, we were making disciples who made disciples. We were all into the navigator thing in the beginning, which I loved the navigators, but it really didn't fit the culture of the, beach town, hippie, Southern California, whatever. And I left that church 12 years after I started it. And I was the 30th guy to go plant a church from there. We
Wow.
had been part of a denomination which, in a way, was repressive in some of their rules, but it was wonderful also because we never owned the churches. Once we started a church in that denomination, they managed it. So basically, we're a movement that plants churches. We're not an organization. I'm not the president of anything. I don't have any responsibility for any of that. We look after them as best we could, but sometimes the denomination said, no, you cannot. So, but that actually turned out to be a blessing because we've always been hands off. Well, then I moved to Hawaii. The church in Hermosa Beach kept planting churches. We've just kind of one for one. We plant one, they plant one, and they're in places in the world we would never go. They're in Israel. They're in parts of Africa, where we've done some things in Africa, but not what they've done. Mostly, what we focus on is Asia and Latin America. It kind of gets around. So the upshot is that there's over 2,600 churches around the world. We never
Wow.
have tried to brand it. A lot of our churches used our name, which was Hope Chapel. But even now, I get a lot of flack for this. Is funny. Young guys are changing the name of churches that used to be called Hope Chapel. And people come to me, aren't you upset about that? It's like, well, that's kind of what we did in the beginning. So why would I be upset with them?
Right.
It's not about somebody's silly brand I
Yeah.
think the defeat of the American church is that we're tied up in money because we got to keep something going, and that we're tied up in the way that we organize things. We kind of make everything into a corporation that really is supposed to be something organic, the kingdom of God, and it spreads the way it does. I was making jokes with you. If you get two generations, for sure, three generations away from somebody I discipled, they don't even know I exist. They don't know my name.
Yeah.
They often don't know the story of the
Yeah.
movement. They only know the story of the guy who discipled them, or maybe the one who
Yeah.
discipled him. And I think that's the way it should be. It's
Yeah.
exciting to operate that way.
No, it's beautiful, Ralph. And like I was saying earlier, I mean, that was super common for us in India. I mean, when we would get down the line generationally, people that we called our movement Ignite, we wanted to ignite a disciple making movement and all of that. The reality was, though, when you got two or three generations down the line, they didn't know there was an American in India doing anything. They didn't know they didn't know anything about Ignite. They didn't know any of those things. And you're right. I mean, the beauty of an organic movement of the Holy Spirit through disciple making and church planting is that it's going to continue whether or not the quote unquote founder. I don't even like saying
Yeah,
anything like that, but
yeah.
and I'm sure you don't either, Ralph. But the reality is whether we're around or not, creating something that is organically multiplying down the line is so beautiful, man. And
It
so
can
we're
go
excited.
anywhere. It goes counterculture to Islam. It
Yeah,
can go in Israel. They're doing things that the government doesn't especially like. But in Hawaii, some of our guys started churches on the sidewalk in homeless camps, and when the police come through and do a sweep, take everything out, the pastor has to go find where his people moved because
yeah,
they tend to move in groups. And ultra rich people aren't going to our middle class churches. We've been able to reach into some of those communities where they're not going to come hear me talk, but it just
yeah.
making disciples who make disciples goes wherever it goes.
Yeah, amen, amen. And we are a part of a partnership where we're getting one of your books that you've written in the past, going through a reprinting, and I believe that it's called Making Disciples. Is that right?
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
tell
called
us about
Making
it.
Disciples, Developing Lifelong Followers of Jesus. And it's probably the second best book I ever wrote. And Christian commercial publishers own the book, and in the early days we signed off all the electronic rights before
Yeah,
anything like that existed. So it used to be you get the book back in 2 years after it goes out, after they can't afford to go print a couple thousand copies because it's not going to sell. Well, now it sells one on Amazon per year. They still own the book. Bobby Harrington managed to uh, get the publisher to sell the book rights to Making Disciples, and it opened the door for me to get another one of my books. My friend Alan Hirsch says these publishers own my babies, and I can't. They're holding my babies hostage. And the sad thing is, if they're not making money, then they're not promoting the book. And
yeah,
so the content is what really matters. I don't care about the money. All I want is the message to go out. And so
yeah,
I'm really thankful for Renew and Discipleship.org for making this happen because this is a really impactful book. Bobby says it's the best book on making disciples that exists.
wow,
And
that's awesome.
I've had a couple of other friends say stuff like that. And it's what we did was we managed to I came up in the hippie era. I was a real straight, narrow kid in a Pentecostal church, mildly Pentecostal, much more. Our pastor's best friend was a Baptist guy, so I'll give you an
Okay,
idea. And I would go to youth camp, and I would encounter, some things that were very real, very valid, that may have been overstated. But anyway, I I kind of came up with this mind of question everything. And I saw church, and it just was over organized, and they were doing Sunday school contests, giving prizes for who brings the most people to church. And I started going, I just want to rethink this thing. And so my second year in a Bible college, I got mad at the whole deal. And a real punk thing, 19-year-old kid. So I mean, total kid thing. I'm going to read the book of Acts, the whole thing, every day, at least 5 days a week for this whole school year, and hang you
wow,
guys. I don't care about you. I'm going to figure out how this thing works. Well, I did. I mean,
wow,
it took a while, but really, the confusion was Ephesians 4. I remember I was a pastor when I ran into this confusion. Ephesians 4:11 to 13, I just never got because I'm the minister. And this is saying that the members are supposed to do the ministry. And I didn't get it. I had to go and, checked all the commentaries. They were confused. Finally, I went
yeah,
and got a tape from Chuck Smith of Calvary Chapel. And I understood that. But long before that, I had figured out that church really should look like the end of Acts 2. That
wow,
that we're meeting together for teaching, fellowship, prayer, breaking of bread, and all that. But the part that even people who get that miss is that it says at the end that they had favor with the neighbors, and the Lord was adding daily to their number such as should be saved. So here's what I got out of this. My job is to equip these people. So we don't come to church so people get saved. I mean, always do the little perfunctory prayer at the end of the service, but that wasn't the point. The point is we're here to equip you. And we're kind of a convention of churches. We're doing church in
Yeah.
houses and on the beach and in mall, food courts, all kind of places. And you're doing church, but you're practicing what you're hearing on the weekend.
Yeah.
You learn to minister to each other, so you know how to minister to those people who you're going to disciple them into Christ. And so evangelism belonged outside the building, doesn't belong in the
Yeah.
building. That was just liberating.
Yeah.
My job isn't to put on some kind of a show to impress people. They aren't even there. It's like the early church. You could get killed for showing up at a church meeting. So we kind of adopted that as, well, we ought to act like that. Is
Yeah.
we're not putting on a show to attract people. What we're gonna do is equip the people we got so that they can go do the thing. And Hawaii has been a left-leaning state
Yeah.
forever, since 1959. And so, in the beginning, we weren't very welcome. In the end, in fact, I just handed off the material to someone from that's working on the book for
Mm.
Discipleship.org. And we did a survey in 2011. We brought the Barna Group in, and 72% of the population said that they identified as either Protestant or Catholic, Protestant being number one,
Yeah.
because we planted so many churches.
Wow.
And between New Hope, which is Wayne Cordero, and myself, our churches, there were 140 new churches in
Wow.
about a 25-year period of time. And then there were other people, and this is the real power. Other people said, if they can do that, we can do that. And
Yeah.
and again, it's more of a movement at that point. So yeah, it's been good times.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
and out of those 72% who are really nominal Christians, I call myself a Christian, but I go to church on Easter. But 34%, I believe it was, in 2011 said, I've been in some kind of a meeting in the last 7 days, which says that
Wow.
they're actually active, and
Yeah.
to some degree. So
No, that's beautiful, Ralph. So if somebody's listening right now, brother, and they really want to step more fully into this challenge of either becoming a church like what you're talking about, like we're going to be a church that equips our people to go be disciples who makes disciples and things like that. What did that practically look like for you guys on the weekend?
well, on the weekend, it's funny. Ed Stetzer told me once that a friend of his said, if you go to Hope Chapel on the weekend, it looks like any other church. A big band, rock and roll. I mean, we were real into that.
Yeah, right.
Real young church. We had 7 services on a weekend. One was high school,
Uh-huh.
one was junior high, but we all taught from the same text.
Okay.
And it was teaching. We went through the word kind of chapter by chapter, not real deep.
Yeah.
I didn't, because I'm prideful individual, and I can impress you with my knowledge, and I have to really watch that. So we try to
Yeah.
keep it loose and fun. A lot of story, a lot of hero making. Before Dave ever wrote the book on making hero making, it's like you tell a story on Friday night from some guy that's sitting in the audience that you heard this week, and then
Yeah.
somebody comes and says, "Yeah, but you ought to hear this other thing." And so Saturday night you got a different story to tell, and you get another one. And Sunday morning you got 3 services. Sometimes I'd tell in preaching 5 times in a weekend myself. Sometimes I'd tell 3 different stories
Yeah.
to lead into the message, and so it's always
Yeah.
like, here's what Josh Howard did this week. Can't believe it. It's
Mhm.
an amazing thing. And we're in Matthew chapter 7. It relates to this. And so
Yeah.
you lead with a parable, and then you teach the word, and then you keep reminding the people over and over. We would at our best for many years. And I kind of fell away from this, sadly, because I thought maybe I'm boring people. But when we were at our best, I would repeat Ephesians 4:11-13, that the
Yeah.
5 gifts that exist to equip the saints for ministry, and that's what we're doing here. And we're not a church. Church is something that meets during the week. This is a convention, and the real church deal, it looks like this. You ought to be there,
Yeah.
And by the way, if you think you're a member and all you ever do is come here on Sunday to hear me preach, I I admit I'm probably the handsomest preacher on the island, and I'm a really good talker. In fact, I'm a professional talker. I'm paid to do this, and that's welcome. But you're not a member; you're a spectator. If you're not in
Yeah.
a church, you're a spectator coming here, and that's fine
That's
with
right.
us. And I would
Yeah.
always just go, just throw $20 in the bucket on the way out the door. And there wasn't a bucket. But that kind of softened
Right.
the blow, but we're actually raising the bar. We're telling
Yeah.
people, "You don't quite fit if you're not really engaging people and
Yeah.
and doing the stuff, then you're not really one of us." And
Yeah.
people it drew people in.
That's beautiful, man. That's great. And so would you call your, the meetings that were happening during the week, would you call those house churches or just churches? They were just churches that meet anywhere?
Well, we I mean, early days were hippie days, right? There were mini cars, which they are now again. There was mini skirts, so we had mini church.
Yeah,
And
there you
what
go.
what we did was we killed we'd been to church when we kind of came up with this idea of mini church. We'd been going for 5 years, and so you already have some established traditions. And one thing you never want to touch is a prayer meeting. If
Right.
you can be a church, but here we're a church. Probably when we did this, we're a church of maybe 900 people, and 85 of them are coming to this. No, yeah, 85 people were coming to the prayer meeting on a midweek prayer meeting, and we decided we're going to turn Wednesday night into. You can do your mini church whenever you want to do it, but nothing's going to happen in the church building on Wednesday night, so that Wednesday night is the night basically for mini church. So, in order to convince people that this is church, we're not. This isn't just a prayer meeting or a
Yeah.
Bible study or something, because we had a lot of Bible studies in the Jesus movement. But so we came up with mini church, and it was a flippant name, but it had a real purpose that we could use as a teaching device. And the people were so hungry for fellowship. What had happened was, in fact, here's the numbers. We had grown to about 400 people meeting in a bunch of buildings up and down Manhattan Beach Boulevard in Manhattan Beach, California. We had a little church building. We used that for children. We rented a preschool that was for nursery. We bought a house, and it had a double garage, and we used that for Sunday school. And then we rented a gym. And we then got this building. It was an old bowling alley up on stilts, like an acre of ground with an acre of building sitting on top of up above it.
Wow. Wow.
And all these people, middle class Christian people who had visited during the years, because I mean, we grow from 12 people to 400 in about 4 years. That was a big deal then.
Yeah.
And they'd come because they wanted to be a part of it. Then they'd find out that we're all scraggly looking hippie types and all that. And I still wore a tie actually, but the hair down, all that. Anyway, some of the guys. I heard somebody say this the other day. He's so messed up a rat wouldn't bite him. Well, that was some of our people, and we were proud of it. Well, all of a sudden, all these middle class people show up, and NBC TV shows up the day we moved into the new
Wow.
building, because now we got an
Okay.
ocean view, we're
Yeah.
uptown, all
Yeah.
that, and we doubled in 1 week our attendance.
Wow.
Well, then, I mean, just think about if you got good fellowship and you got 12 people in a room, and suddenly there's
Yeah.
24. And between the people who know each other, there's always a stranger and then a member, and then a stranger and then a member, a stranger and a member. You ruined everything. You're offering nothing to the new people because
Yeah.
they
Right.
don't they don't get in, and you hurt your own people, and it was a
Right.
mess. And so we had to do something, and during the kind of organic revival days of the Jesus Revolution, everybody was leading Bible studies all over. But as that thing died, and we knew when it died, we more knew that it was a work of the Spirit because we observed it die than we
Yeah.
did when we were in it. When we were
Mhm.
in it, we all thought we were pretty hot stuff. Look what's happening. But when it died, it's like, oh. That was the Holy Spirit. That wasn't us. Well,
Yep.
then at that point, the home Bible studies all kind of fizzled. Just people they weren't that motivated anymore.
Yeah.
And so at this point, then we had to do something, and that's where we came up with the mini church. And then what naturally happened was guys that were leading the mini church are learning to shepherd people.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so they're learning the word on the weekends and they're learning to implement it.
Yeah.
And basically, I'm kind of like a Bible college light on the weekend. All of our pastors were. And, I had a class in pastoral epistles that the guy made it a lot of fun. And I decided that's my role model. That's what I'm going to do in church.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they've got an education. They're being taught. We'd get the leaders together and we'd
Yeah.
read books together. And so we'd read theology. We wouldn't read church growth. We'd read history books, sometimes like leadership. If you haven't read two or three books about Winston Churchill, you're not really a leader in my mind. And so we're if you're leading a mini church, you're being trained to do more. And it's
Yeah.
just natural that if you start maybe three mini churches, but raise a disciple and then you leave, go start over,
Yep.
raise another disciple. Well, then we're going to ask you, would you consider planting a church? And if you say no,
Yeah.
we'll leave you alone. But if you
Yeah.
say yes, then we'll take it from there. So
Wow.
that
Yeah.
was our whole story, really.
That's beautiful, man. That's incredible. And praise God of just with what he did through it, Ralph, and what he did through you and your whole team and the people that you discipled. I mean, like I said at the very beginning of our time together, it is which is sad, but it's just true. It's very unheard of in North America to see that type of multiplication and impact. I think there are people all over the country now longing for that again, which is beautiful, and there's more people asking questions and more people looking into it and more people willing to shift things to try to see disciple making and multiplication happen. And
Yeah.
honestly, one of the big questions almost every church across the country right now is asking is the disciple making question. I mean, how do we actually get back to what Jesus has called us to do and to do it well and to be fruitful with it and to multiply the kingdom through it? And so, I mean, thank you for paving the way all these years, Ralph, and then putting it in writing for us through this book to be able to really just gather and glean those principles and hear some of those stories. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, brother. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've tried to do is make one of the things I've tried to do is make material available at no cost. And so I have a website. It's ralphmore.net. And it's really kind of a reference site. It points to Exponential. It points to a lot of my stuff is hosted on New Breed. There's some courses in how to do this that are free. Everything's free. I do a blog. I do a podcast on a regular basis, and it's all free. I'm so thrilled that Discipleship.org exists. I'm thrilled about Renew. I'm excited about New Breed, Exponential. When I was coming up, everybody was into the seeker movement and how to
Yeah.
build a big church, and it was so
Yep.
commercial. And we took a beating. We were always, we odd man out. It was not nice, but it also fed into the kind of. I mean, I'm an 80-year-old punk, rebel still, and one of my friends is a guy named Peyton Jones, leads a thing called New Breed that I'm a part
Yeah,
of.
I know Peyton. He's a friend of mine too. Yep.
So he explained the other night we were out for pizza, and he's telling me about the term New Breed is actually a punk rock term.
Mm.
He said that when these groups in England begin to figure out that they could rent a recording studio, they could get records pressed, they could get DVDs pressed or CDs pressed, and buy get the jacket printed, and then sell it when they're playing in a bar or they're playing in a concert hall. They could avoid the big publishers and do what they wanted. The movement was called New Breed Punk Music.
Okay.
And so Peyton picked up the title for his ministry, New Breed, because he's thinking I'm a new breed punk, and I'm running ends on the establishment. Well, that's kind of what we had to do. We didn't just do it because we were rebels. We were that maybe, but we did it because we had to do it in order to
Yeah.
function and survive. We had to run ends on our own denomination, which we actually loved, but we had to still run ends. And publishing industry for now, it's wonderful because of Amazon. They've given us such powerful tools in terms of books, and YouTube has given us reach that we didn't have.
Yeah.
RSS.com now has given us podcast reach that is, in my mind, is still for me is unexploited. I've got to go to work on that. So it's
Yeah.
just fun. It's fun to be alive in these days when finally the church is waking up and going, oh yeah, the main thing Jesus told us to do is make disciples. We got to figure that one out.
Right. Yeah, you'd think maybe this would have been a conversation around the entire time, right? And so no, but that's really good, Ralph. And am I right that you'll be joining us at the forum in April in Houston?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Very excited about it.
Wonderful.
And
Yeah.
I get to go to the Renew conference the week after, so it's fun.
Awesome. Well, there you go. So for anyone listening, guys, I mean, definitely come check out, and you'll have a chance to hear Ralph and get to meet him in Houston, Texas, at our disciple making forum that's happening. You can find out more info at Discipleship.org, and then also he'll be at the Renew conference. That is literally the week after that. That's happening right outside of Louisville, Kentucky, at one of the campuses of Southeast Christian Church. And you can find out more info about that one at renew.org. But Ralph, we're about out of time with our time together. But if there's something based upon this conversation on disciple making, if you want to leave our listeners with, if their heart's burning inside of them, they want to be a new breed, they want to get out there and really go after this. What are maybe a couple of their first steps that you would recommend, or places that they can go in order to really dig deep and start living this life that you're calling them to?
Well, this is very, very self-serving, but I'm going to say go to ralphmoore.net and start looking for it's free, and it'll take you a lot of it'll take you to New Breed or Exponential, and there's free resources everywhere. But the best thing you can probably do is walk across the street and make friends with somebody that doesn't yet know Jesus. And I was at I guess it was a Wesleyan gathering, and they don't drink alcohol, and probably a lot of our listeners don't drink alcohol. And I got up, I was being somebody was interviewing me, and I go, they go, what's the best thing you can do if you want to make a disciple? And I go, well, you got to probably drink a lot of coffee or drink a lot of beer. But the point is not the coffee or the beer. The point is you got to hang out, and if you
Yeah.
it starts with hanging out, and the Lord will lead the conversation. The Lord will bring the miraculous into it when you pray. The best thing I can say is hang out with somebody to the point that they're complaining about something, and then ask permission to pray with them or for them if you're afraid. Go home and pray, but get their permission so they know they're looking. They could be an agnostic, and they're going to be looking skyward going, well, you going to do it or not? Because they prayed with
Right.
you. And
Yeah.
that's a big victory. If we can get that far, we're going places.
That's beautiful, Ralph. Well, thank you, brother. And those of you listening, I mean, you heard it, right? We don't have to overcomplicate this. This is really us living as the hands and the feet of Jesus, and really loving our neighbor and getting out there and spending time with people who are far from God. I think a sad truth, Ralph, honestly, is that there's a lot of people in the Christian world. There's times that we'll train people on making a list of people they know who don't know Jesus. And there's so many people in professional Christian ministry that sometimes can't even list one person that they personally are in contact with all the time who doesn't know Jesus. And man, if we're never around lost and hurting and broken people, we may not be following Jesus in the same way that we think we might be, right?
Yeah.
Because his feet are always going to lead to the lost and the broken if we're following his footsteps. And so thank you for that challenge, brother. I appreciate you. And thanks for being on today. Thanks for telling us about your book, and thanks for joining us at the forum, and then also at Renew as well at the end of April. Man, and thank you just for all of your hard work, and for being that punk rock new breed kind of person over the last 50, 60 years of your life, man. We're so grateful for you, Ralph, and it's been a privilege to just interview you today. So thanks for being on.
Oh, thanks for having me. I loved it.
Yeah, awesome, brother. Well, hey guys, we appreciate you. Please come and join us at the forum. And whenever you get a chance, check out Ralph's book, Disciple Making. Honestly, guys, like Bobby said, it is one of the best books out there on disciple making. And so definitely check that out. And then check us out at discipleship.org, where we have a lot of more free resources that can help you. And definitely go to Ralph's website as well and make sure that you check his material out too. But guys, until next time, let's make sure that we take Ralph's advice. Let's walk across the street, walk next door. Let's spend some time with people who are far from God, and let's be a disciple who makes disciples until everybody has had a chance to hear. We love you guys, and we will see you next time. God bless.